Hello, everybody. This is a new thing I'm trying. I'm going to be chatting with some pros from the industry. I'm going to call the series Let's Chat. So now for the first episode, we're having Eric Wilkerson, who is my teacher at CGSpectrum. He is both a concept artist and an illustrator. He has worked on multiple games and a lot of titles, huge titles and big clients, ranging from Disney to Marvel to Star Trek and much more. I'm not going to go into detail into those kind of stuff. You can find a lot of that stuff in his website and his other interviews on YouTube. We want to get to know who is the artist behind the artwork more in this video. So hopefully you guys find this very interesting. And without further ado, let's start with the first question. So before we start, how are you doing, Eric? How's everything?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, but managing, juggling, teaching.
How are you dealing with the quarantine?
Honestly, I haven't met an artist yet that has actually been affected by the quarantine, because we really never left our houses before the quarantine. I mean, there's some really funny memes of showing an artist in their workspace before COVID-19, and it's the exact same photo after COVID-19 or during COVID-19. So, yeah.
Some of us want this to continue.
I'm saying,
well,
if I can get people to deliver my groceries, I don't drive anywhere. I probably should move my car. I move my car so I don't get tickets. So that's about the extent of me driving. I can afford a new car, but why? I don't go anywhere. That's what my wife tells me. Because I want a Range Rover. I've wanted a Range Rover for years, but she says, you don't go anywhere. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, what do you just want to buy a car? You want to buy like a $60-some thousand car just to sit outside and collect dust? Oh,
exactly.
No, yeah. Okay.
Yes. So that's really cool. All right. So yeah, as you said, it doesn't affect us as artists. Just like another day for us. Okay. So I in this interview, I want to get some of the stuff that a lot of younger artists they get into. Like, you find a lot of artists who call themselves concept artists, but when you look at their portfolio, there's nothing that shows any concept art related work. So we want to hear from the pro, what do you think is the biggest difference between concept art and illustration, and what does Eric personally, what do you prefer?
Oh man, I mean, okay, so one of the major differences between concept art and illustration is that a concept artist is designing things piecemeal. They're designing the character, they're designing the environment, they're designing props, logos, all of that stuff separately, all right? Mm-hmm. A character turnaround sheet or an orthographic view or something like that is just the character. What are they wearing? What do they look like? What's the silhouette? Okay. But there's really no story there. You can put narrative elements onto a costume, have the character holding a teddy bear or have it clipped to a belt and have them carrying some giant sword with glowing runes in it or something like that, or whatever the design might be. But you still want to tell a story with that image, but you just have this cool looking design. But that's only half the job. So an illustrator has to take that design, has to take that prop, has to take that environment and sandwich it together and tell a story. Hopefully, make an image that captivates the audience enough or makes them pause long enough so that that image can promote that game, movie, book, comic book, trading card, whatever it might be, and get that consumer to buy that product. That's an illustrator's sole purpose, is to make a narrative image. It's narrative image making, all right? Narrative picture making that makes you want to buy that product, all right? If it were just fine art, it would be something bizarre, but it wouldn't be promoting anything. It wouldn't be for a book or a video game or a movie poster. You're not going to use fine art for that. You clearly need to show what's going on potentially in that book or in that art or in that game in one image. So like an illustrator is one, and I tell my students this, an illustrator is one part concept artist, one part movie director, one part cinematographer, and one part painter. All right, you've got to design it, you've got to know how to tell a story, you've got to know how to light it and compose the scene, and then you've got to paint it. An illustrator has to do all of those things and have a strong control of that process. So it's a lot, but it's fun. So that's, and I mean, if you ask, well, which do you prefer? It's gonna be illustration for me, anyway. I mean, I like doing concept design, but at some point I feel like, okay, well, what's next? Like the design portion of it is fun, but it's not as fulfilling for me as it would be if I could then take that Final Fantasy design or that character from Last of Us that's been designed with the funky stuff growing out of their face, the mushrooms and whatnot, and have that character like biting into the flesh of the hero with the blood splurting out and people in the background running away, and all these narrative elements around this one moment where the monster is killing somebody in the foreground or in the midground of that composition. That's fun to me. So,
and if you had to say, like, which one of the three, concept art, illustration, and fine art, which one is more expressive?
Definitely fine art. Definitely.
And less illustration and less concept, right?
Yes. I mean, because with illustration, you're being asked to paint somebody else's idea. Right? So, you know, like, nobody comes to you and says, okay, well, what illustrations you got just hanging out in your hard drive that we could buy and use? It doesn't work like that. Like, somebody says to you, okay, well, here's the brief for this magic card, or here's the brief for this book cover, here's the manuscript. Read through it, see what ideas catch your eye, or, you know, what you think would make a cool image, or we can supply you with a couple of chapters from the book that you could read and get an idea for what this cover could look like, and send us sketches by next week. Right? That's the job. Fine art is way more expressive. I mean, there might be a theme. You might have a theme, you might not. I follow a fine artist that does nothing but paint giant landscapes of convenience stores at night with neon lights and glowing effects going on. But I'm thinking, why? Who wants a painting of a giant landscape of a convenience store hanging on their wall? But clearly somebody does, because his studio is gigantic, and I think, my God, like
more than you think.
But yeah, so there are people. There's lowbrow art, which is also referred to. It's referred to as pop surrealism, which is also referred to as lowbrow art. So there's a movement for that. There's a following for that kind of expressive fine art, where people can do just bizarre stuff where, you know, it's just a pigeon with one giant eye, you know, holding a worm in its claws, like flying with some kind of snow-peaked mountains in the background, just weird stuff, right? And the eye actually might have some kind of like spiral goat eye thing going on. It could be completely weird stuff, but there's an audience for it. And it's just about finding that audience and having them having like your work has to be in demand, or you do it long enough until your work is in demand. It's fine art is that whole gallery scene is just it's such a crapshoot. You're either going to do really expressive works that people gravitate toward and you make a decent living from, or you starve. That's where that whole starving artist thing comes in, where people just want to go out and be the next Picasso or something. But the other thing with fine art is that so much of it is about promoting yourself, pitching yourself as this entity, like you're the brand, right? And you have to sell that art. You have to. It could be your whole concept, your whole painting or sculpture or whatever could be completely stupid. To the average viewer, the average person walking down the street, it's like, I'm not paying $10,000 for that. That's stupid. But somebody with money to burn is going to ask that artist, what was your idea for this? And they say, oh, well, I'm blah, 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 philosophical conversation later. And then they go, here's $10,000. I want this in my living room.
Yeah.
And then that artist goes, wow, I should make a series of these, and then go buy a penthouse in New York City. Like but on the other end of that, it's, well, I wanted to paint a giant bird with I wanted to paint a pigeon with a giant goat eye holding a worm, and like, I'll give you $20 for it. Like, I don't, like, nobody cares. Like, it's one or the other. It's totally one or the other. But anyway, that's
so and it's a total opposite. Like, illustration is grounded. It has rules, and it has, you have to learn perspective. You can exaggerate some stuff. You can play with the edges, but it has to be grounded in a way. And concept art is even more. You can go even up to the, screw. Like, if you want to go do a concept art of a watch, you can't say, I'm expressing the edges. No, you have to draw everything as precise as possible.
Well, but here's the counter argument to that, because the concept art to some Pixar films, it depends on what the project is. Yeah. Because concept art for video games has to be, very, very specific, very detailed, very realistic, because that's going to be handed off to a 3D modeler that needs to know what the hell they're looking at. Yeah. Right? But I've seen whole art books from, like, The Incredibles, the art of The Incredibles. Half that book is like Art Deco. I'm like, or like really loose chalk pastel graphic stuff. And then that's the result, was this Academy Award winning film. And you go, I don't understand how do you leap from these rough pastel drawings? I mean, somewhere along the way, they probably left some stuff out. In same thing with, I'm looking at my art books now. Like, WALL-E is another one where, WALL-E is beautiful though. The Art of Finding Nemo, it's like a lot of really loose designs, but then they take the time to take those rough pastel drawings, then they make maquettes and sculptures, that they scan and then bring that into 3D and then do it. Depends on the project, depends on the studio. Animation, concept design, and character design is a little looser, I feel, than what's done for games and movies. But anyway.
So now let's get a bit more, let's see how much you love art. Okay, let's say you had an offer of like $2 million. Okay, and you were told to not do art ever again, you could work any other job, but no art, would you accept? Would you take the offer? And if not, how much is the price that would
To
let you?
never make art again ever in my life?
Yes. Never, yes.
Like if somebody told me that you will die at the tender age of 95, so I've got a good half century left
Yes.
to live, and I could not pick up a pencil and draw anything.
No.
Like who's gonna know?
They're gonna, you know, like
Is like somebody gonna come by my house like every couple months and be like, is there any art in
no,
here?
no, 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 no. Neuralink. Yeah, in 3 years, Elon Musk is creating this device that they're gonna put in our heads, and I think it's gonna be normal, just like the cell phone. So
Oh, so it would be something uploaded to a cloud where if I
exactly
do make
where
art,
if you do it, they will know.
they'll
I
know,
don't know who they are, but you know,
and then what? Like
and then they'll take the money
electric
back.
shocks or something? That'd be pretty messed up. You go to draw a little stick figure for my kid and they'll like start shaking. No, I wouldn't take that. 2 million?
Wouldn't.
No, not
2
for 2 million. No.
10,
No.
even 10.
No. It would $10 million.
Yes. How much is the price that you might consider?
How much money does the owner of Amazon have?
That's
Straight up. Like,
That's
because if I'm gonna stop painting and drawing and being creative for the rest of my days, I better have more money than everybody else on the planet. I need a house. I'm not gonna say 5 wives because somebody might watch this one day. I'm gonna say I would need multiple houses. I would need like a lot of things to pass my time, right?
yeah.
I mean, I can still go admire art. I can still go look at art. I just can't create it. So, well, technically, all right. So, all right. Your question is vague because what kind of art? Are we talking paintings? Are we talking drawings? Are we talking sculpture? Everything?
Any form of art. You can't
Any
cheat.
form of art.
Yeah, you can't do sculptures.
See, but that's okay. But see, then that's because your hat is art. Your clothing is art.
Okay.
All right.
Go this. Okay.
No, because
No, you know what I mean. Anything, related to illustration.
you gotta specify.
You can't even say sports is a form of art. No.
Because singing, dancing is performance art.
Yeah,
right?
even speaking is a form of art. Yeah.
Yes.
But just
playing a sport.
illustration.
Playing a sport is in its own way an art form because I can't catch a ball to save my life. Don't throw anything at me because I'm not throwing it back at you.
Exactly.
So it would have to be you can't create any form of two-dimensional art, two-dimensional or three-dimensional art ever again.
Yes.
No. Unless I had Amazon money. I want to park my car on a platform that lowers into the ground, right? So that my belongings are safe and I can just press a button and the whole elevator lifts my car up out of the ground and I get in it and drive off. That man has that kind of money. But if I can't have that kind of money, then no, I'm going to paint until I die. So
okay.
It's
So
a very
that's a good-
thorough answer to your question.
That's a great answer for people who are young. So you see, guys, art is more important than money. You heard it from Eric.
Because all right. So and I'll say this for anybody that's gonna watch this or that's watching this is that your personal happiness is not going to be defined by money. All right, it's going to be defined by the people that you're with, the experiences that you have, the things that you create to be able to say I made that is so much more satisfying than anything. Like if you just had a bunch of money, like there's so many problems that come along with that. So do I want that frustration? Do I want to have people coming at me talking about, you make umpteen billions of dollars, why don't you save the planet? Like, or have somebody come at me going, well, no, I don't like you anymore, I'm taking half. Ooh, like when you could have just sat in a room and just been happy making something that satisfies you.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yeah, that's really grateful. I agree 100%, by the way. Yani, I don't think there's anything materialistic that could fulfill you as much as creating something and earning something. And you know, the art journey to create any piece, it has its ups and downs in every piece. The demons you battle, everything that goes. The final result is the sum of the whole experience. You can't remove some part of the experience and just, you know, have fun the whole time and have a rich life. It's part of those both things, yin and yang, the struggle. This is what gives it meaning. And even people who didn't see, even this surprised me, like even young people, maybe your kids, and even me when I was young, when I used to look at Disney's work, like Lion King or Toy Story, I knew as 4 years old, 5 years old, how did I know that this artwork was superb? Nobody taught me. There's something innate, something inside of each one of us that when we look at something great, we immediately recognize it. So I think, and you know it, sometimes you put a lot of work in a piece, a lot of effort, and people love the piece. The amount of work you put in, somehow people get the part of your soul that went into this. You sold your life and your sanity for this piece, and people look at this and they see the sacrifice of the soul of the human. And sometimes you want a shortcut and do a piece, and you want to and you love the piece, you might have the piece, but when you show people don't get the same feeling, and they're like, yeah, it's good, but you think, but I did this cool effect here, how come you don't see it? You didn't put as much soul into it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's that part of it just comes down to passion, and I had already talked to you about that, and like loving what you do. Because if you don't love what you do, at some point, you're just gonna like throw down your pencil, throw down your tablet, throw down your brush, and just walk away. And I hate this. Yeah, I hate this. I mean, and that was me working as I worked in casino gaming for a few years, and I absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. There are staff illustration jobs out there, or there are staff game jobs out there, I'll say, that specify in the job description that, you know, they want somebody to do illustration and stuff, but what they really want is somebody to do graphic design. They want a user interface artist. And that's not my specialty. That's not what I ever trained to do, to know how to do. And to play with fonts all day was just it was the worst. It was the worst. So yeah, I mean, at some point you get to a point where you say, if I don't at least try to go after what I really want to do, win or lose, succeed or fail, I will regret it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so now I didn't ask you what was the worst part of your career. The next question was going to be, what was the best moment in your career? So now the opposite.
You want to know what the best moment? The best moment in my career was when I got my first concept art job working with the Blue Man Group and Weta Workshop. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and that's another thing with being a concept artist, not the segue, but you could work as a concept artist. You could work on a project for years, and that project might get canceled, and nobody will ever see what you did. With an illustration, it's almost a guarantee that if you do that job, it's going to be published within a year, less than a year, maybe within a year's time, it's going to be out there for the world to see. I worked as a concept artist for 4 years for a studio, and I got the chance to work with Weta, and Weta was contracted to fabricate my designs. So there were performers wearing my costumes, like wearing these giant robot costumes that I had designed. And to be able to physically reach out and touch my art, to see people wearing it, see people walking around and have the design illuminate and glow and strobe just the way I had drawn it and painted it in Photoshop, was just mind-blowing to me. And the other part of it was getting a chance to work with Andrew Probert. Andrew is old school concept designer, right up there with Sid Mead and Ron Cobb and like all of those, Ralph McQuarrie. And as far as in my book, he is, because this man designed the Enterprise from Star Trek: The Motion Picture, interior and exterior shots. He designed the Enterprise D from Star Trek: The Next Generation, interior and exterior shots. Designed the Ferengi, the Romulan warbirds, like most of the stuff that you see and attribute to Star Trek: The Next Generation, at least the first few seasons of that show, is all him. The pads, the laptops, the whole computer station on Picard's desk in his ready room. Like, do you like Apple? I feel like the iPad, all of that stuff would not exist if that show was not on. And I remember asking Andrew, like, do you get any kind of royalty off of that? Because Apple pretty much stole this not stole, but was heavily inspired by the design work on this little plastic prop that's owned by Paramount Studios. Like, how does that work? Who's getting paid here? And it's a work for hire contract. So like, no, he was just there to do the job. But huge inspiration for me, because I was I still am a diehard Star Trek fan. So being able to work alongside somebody that designed like my favorite show in the world and ask him about the day-to-day interactions with like Roddenberry and Rick Berman, and like going to the set and stuff like that, while also working and designing robots for a new show, will always be the highlight of my career. I'm just sad that the thing never came out. There is probably a warehouse somewhere in New York City or in Vegas with crates full of these costumes that will never see the light of day. I think Cirque du Soleil owns it right now. So if you're familiar with that performance group, I think they bought, I don't know the details of it, but yeah, it's like, to work as a concept artist is to work with the understanding that what you do may never be seen. And I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that on a as a career. So
it's so funny that I have a very, very similar story, but I worked for 5 months on a big IP also. Yani as big as the name you mentioned. I cannot say it because even now I cannot say
Sure.
This is how bad it is. You've done 5 months worth of work, and not only you, a whole team, and the project is cancelled, and you cannot even say that you worked on something, you know. So yeah, so it's very weird that I have a very similar story to
many.
this.
Yes, there's so many people. I remember there are artists out there that worked on Tim Burton and oh man, what's that other artist? There were so many versions of a new Superman film that were supposed to have come out before Superman Returns. There were so many directors attached to it, and with each version there were a new team of concept artists that were asked to make art for it. So over the years, over the decades, really, some of those artists have been able to leak stuff online, and you go, oh my god, this is amazing, him fighting Brainiac or doing this or doing that, and they can never really show the wealth of art that they put into it because they don't own it. It's not, you know, the project never came out. It never went to fruition. So yeah, but like, you've got to have that emotional disconnect with the art. It's just a job. It's just a job, because you might pour all your love and energy into doing concept designs that they might not even use. Even if the project comes out, they might not even use your stuff.
Yes.
And you go, wait a minute, I spent all this time rendering that giant monster and they cut it? You know, that would just freak me out. I would be so pissed.
Definitely. yeah, that's exactly one of the biggest differences between concept art and illustration. Illustration and fine art, they are similar to this, and concept art is very different, because what you do as a concept artist is not the final product. You are just one member of a pipeline that's going to be, your work is going to be either even be 2D animation or 3D or even in-game or to a movie. So only hardcore fans of the series might know of you. If you can't live with that, and if you are not okay with, maybe, as you said, maybe even up to 70 or 80% of your work being cancelled, concept art is not for you. It's not for you. And you have to move to something very more expressive. I would say that a lot of people are illustrators, even if they call themselves something else. But they are mostly, sometimes they're not even illustrators, but because illustration is a big thing, but they are more considered as illustrators more than concept artists. You don't see a lot of concept artists, especially in DeviantArt and social media. Most of them are illustrators. They draw pretty faces, pretty girls. And a lot of them, they don't even convey a story in the piece. It's just a beautiful portrait of something.
It's just pinup art. It's pinup art.
It's pinup art, exactly.
But what I tell students is that I think that a lot of these art books that have come out over the past past few decades, starting with the Art of Star Wars, I think for a lot of kids or a lot of students going to art school now, probably the Art of Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3 might have been their introduction to some art books, or art of different Pixar movies. But what they see in those books inspired them to want to be a concept artist. And what I tell them is that probably like 80% of those books is all illustration. And it, don't be confused. Yeah, there's some character design pages, there's some creature design pages, but then there's whole splash keyframe illustrations showing those characters in a specific moment in the story for that movie. And the whole pod race illustration that Doug Chiang did for Star Wars Episode 1, that's on the cover of the art book, is an illustration. There's an explosion going on in the background. You can clearly see Anakin flying this pod racer. There's a whole moment going on there. That's not concept art. The concept art was done before he actually painted that. He had to know what that pod racer looked like.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
you know, every little detail, what the turbines look like, what the pod itself, how it was connected to the pod, the how it was connected to the turbines, the patterns and the rust and the chipped paint and all that stuff had to be worked out, and that's the concept art portion of it. But then he sat down, whipped out some acrylics, and just painted it.
Yeah. So yeah, and a lot of people, they don't know. So now you guys know a little bit of the difference. Okay, so as an artist, you should have a lot of different skills. If you had to minimize them, like, okay, what is the number one skill that every artist at any level, that if you had to choose one skill as artistic skill, not like patience, not like a general skills, like an artistic skill, what would be the number one skill if you want to be a concept artist, if you want to be an illustrator? Okay, let's leave fine art, concept art and illustration. What's the number one skill for concept art and the number one skill for illustration, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, for both, it's just having a high level of technical drawing ability.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to understand the human form. You've got to understand perspective, proportion, the fundamentals of drawing.
And let's go even high. Like, do you like line work is more important, or like brushmanship? Which one is which? If you had to choose,
line work. Because there's a lot of people out there that, I mean, because being an illustrator is not dependent on you knowing how to paint traditionally or do this fully rendered realistic painting in Photoshop or whatever art program. But if you can't draw, if your line work is trash, it doesn't matter how good you know how to throw down brush strokes and stuff like that over top of it. It's still going to look like trash with some brush strokes layered over top of it. There's got to be that foundation. There's got to be the structure, this strong line work, the proportions, the whatever, the perspective, all the details, all of that thought process that goes into the design aspect of that illustration has to be sound. And if it's not, then that's it's not gonna work out.
Okay, so yeah, so Feng Zhu has a saying where he says that, when you have like a great design, like for example, you have a Ferrari. Okay, no matter how you color the Ferrari, it's still going to be a Ferrari. The design is very solid, it's very grounded, it's very cool. You can color it whatever color, you color it and it's still going to be cool. But the opposite is not true. Like when you have a 1980 Civic, Honda, you cannot upgrade it to a Ferrari by having great coloring. And the same goes with line work. You can't color your way to a great painting if the foundation, if the color work, if the anatomy, if the perspective is out of whack. There is no way you can fix it with colors, or that's the top of the pyramid stuff. If the bottom of the pyramid is not working well, nothing can fix it by doing some fancy brushes or asking for what's the newest brush.
Right. So, and it's like when I watch these tutorials, these digital painting tutorials or concept tutorials on YouTube or something, and there's no line work, there's no structure, it's just somebody doing blobs, and the next thing you know, like, they have this awesome image, but they spend most of that time erasing, flipping, warping, massaging it, figuring it out, while they're actively drawing it and painting it at the same time, trying to figure out what they're going to do next. And that's just a disaster. Like, I mean, imagine a chef just going to a refrigerator and just grabbing random stuff and just tossing it into a pot and then just like figuring it out as they go. No, like, have some idea of what you're gonna cook. Get your ingredients together. Once you've got that, then you can start figuring out how much of each ingredient to put into that mixture so that you can make a tasty meal. Same thing with an illustration or a design. Draw it out first. Know what you're gonna do. Have a roadmap. It's a roadmap. Have a roadmap before you dive in.
Yeah, and it's exactly as you said. Yani you could repeat it. Yani you can't be like giving a customer a dish and then the second customer, I want the same dish, and it's a totally different thing. It's the same thing with artwork. When a client comes, yani if I change the variables, you should be able to adapt because you have the toolkit, and and you can sci-fi, no problem. The same applies to anything. It's the same fundamentals, the same understanding, the same basic shapes, and you just build from the small to big. You don't start with the fancy. That's what I see a lot of beginners, they do. They focus on details. Leave the details, your basic shapes, your overall. I tell them to do quick ones, 10 minutes sketches, and focus on overall silhouette and form. Then move into details. People think that details is the hardest part. A lot of people, they do some decent details, but their distribution is out of place. Because as you get older, your observational skills, they become better and better and better. And now at 30, I can see stuff that I didn't see when I was 20. And I'm sure that you do see a lot of stuff that I don't see. So you get better with time. Okay, you even know, like, the door handle is wrong. The buttons should be the other way around. Those minute details. The nose should be this way. The face doesn't have this thing. The eyebrows. Minute stuff that beginners, they never think of, because you have stuff figured out, and now you can focus on stuff that takes you higher and higher.
Right. And a lot of that is practice and repetition.
Exactly.
So, I love focusing on lighting in my work, and I started studying cinematography and trying to figure out, like, why does this shot look so good? What choices were made here as far as camera angle, as far as lighting, as far as the color grading of the image to evoke an emotional response in the viewer? Why is it that every time you see a funeral scene in a movie, the entire image is tinted blue and it's raining? Like, I get it. It doesn't have the same emotional impact if it's a bright sunny day and it's like a warm tinted screen. You don't want warm yellow happy colors for a funeral scene. I get it. But then there's a reason for that. There's a reason for all of those things. And then that can be applied to concept art, to illustration, to really evoke an emotional response, or to at least try. So,
okay.
But people that are just starting out, they're still working out their foundation skills. They're still trying to figure out how to blend colors or to make something look three-dimensional in a 2D surface. And they're not thinking about color. They're not thinking about light. They're not thinking about composition. They're just trying to do something cool, like they see being produced by their favorite concept artists on ArtStation or something. And it doesn't work like that. Like, learn how to build your house first before you
add the tiling on the roof.
Tiling the roof, the paint job. Don't just start putting a couch in the middle of a green field.
Wallah, that's the best. That's the best I've heard so far. It's like, wallah, when you go to the brush work, you are like, what paint should we use? And you don't have a wall. You don't have a foundation.
Yeah.
That's a really great way. Okay, Eric. So that's we have the last question. It's going to be a little bit philosophical in a way. And it's going to be, let's say 200 years from now, what do you want to be remembered for? Who was Eric?
Oh man. Man, I mean, that's a heavy question, because you usually, like, people that make differences or are rich or influencers or something like that, they get asked stuff like that. I'm none of that.
Your students look up to you, man.
I mean,
and your artwork is going to be in the internet.
So, I mean, I would like to at least, I think about the preservation of my work. I think about, especially my oil paintings, I think about the archivability of stuff like that. And will this painting hold up 100 years, 200 years from now? Am I doing it properly? And does the subject matter that I'm painting represent my values, my beliefs, and my interests? And I guess just to be remembered as somebody that tried to try to incorporate more diversity into my art, my sci-fi art, because there really aren't a lot of sci-fi illustrators, sci-fi fantasy illustrators, sci-fi fantasy artists in general tripping over themselves to put people that look like you or me in their work. Because they look at the marketplace, they look at what's in stores, they look at what's on game shelves, they look what's being produced, and they say, well, why should we? You know, people lost their minds when they found out that Miles Morales was getting his own PlayStation 5 game. Like, in a bad way. Like, wait, that can't be for real. I thought that was offensive. Like, yeah, his movie just straight up won an Academy Award. Of course they made a video game for him. But, like, there are people out there just angry. Like, how dare you put a black guy as the main hero of a video game? But, you know, I don't want to paint slaves. I don't want to paint, you know, black pain. I don't want to paint negative moments that, you know, I want to paint positive things. You know, that there's that Star Trek part of me, that Star Trek influence. Like, if I'm going to paint like sci-fi scenes that have any kind of diversity in it, I want it to feel like a possible future, a hopeful thing, and maybe inspire a future artist that, you know, as a kid right now goes into the bookstore and says, oh man, that's so cool, I want to learn how to draw, and then like tries to copy my artwork or something, and then, because that's what I did. I started out copying cover art from Jim Lee and a lot of X-Men stuff, and that inspired me to want to do this. So, like, I'm not saying that I don't know if that would ever happen, but I mean, it would be cool to know that
you still have 50 years, man.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to know that there would be somebody out there that was inspired enough to want to dabble in this, or, you know, try it out. Because you have so many of these companies out here now crying about how they didn't know, or they didn't realize that they didn't have a diverse staff. Like, how did you not know? I think that's like, you mean you just walked in and you're like, oh well.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, if it inspires somebody to get into video games or to design their own or create their own company or something like that, I don't know. I mean, that's heavy. That's a heavy question. I just
And a great answer. A great answer, honestly. And I know it's heavy because a lot of people won't ask you this, and sometimes even we between ourselves we don't want to go there. But it's really cool to hear that, and for young people to hear that. And one of the things that you guys maybe don't know about Eric, a lot of people that when they, especially when I see people around me, when they go above 35, 36, 40, they tend to do more admin work and very, very little artwork. And some of them just leave artwork for good. And Eric is one of the few who still goes to the battlefield, who still holds his pen or his brush, and he still does the artwork. So this is something that I truly respect. And I think it's a good mindset, and it's good to have one of you to look up to, that we can still do that in our 40s, in our 50s, in our 60s. We can continue pushing. Because a lot of young people, they don't want to. One of the things that you hate to hear is like, I used to do art. When I was your age, I used to do art. No, we want people to still be doing it at 40s and 50s, and they should be better than us. Well, so we can look up to them,
There is a movie, there's a black and white film I watched in college, starring Cary Grant. I believe, yeah, it's Cary Grant, called The Fountainhead. And I vaguely remember the movie, but I remember it being about an architect whose designs were just so ahead of their time that firms wouldn't hire him. Like, nobody wanted to build his buildings, and he was given the choice, like, just make it in this direction, make it like the rest of the buildings that you see out there. And he refused. He said, no, I'm not going to do it like that. Like, that's not me. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. Like, I want my buildings to have this unique vision. And he kept being told, no, you got to do it like this. You got to conform. And he spent years away from doing the thing he loved and went and got odd jobs, was a construction worker, did random stuff. And then one day he was I think it was something like he found out that some company took one of his blueprints and they were actually making a building based on one of his designs, but they altered it. And it infuriated him so much that he literally went to the construction site and blew up the building.
Oh my God.
He's just like, nope, you're not tainting my art. He set charges and blew up the building. And I'm watching this and I'm like, damn. Now you gotta respect that. That's, he's in there for the long haul. He was dedicated to his craft. He was dedicated to his art. And he waited until the world caught up with what his vision was. And I thought, you know what? Regardless of whether it takes 5, 10, 20 years, at some point, somebody is going to like what you do. They're going to want what you do. And they're gonna call you because they don't see anybody else out there doing it, or not enough people out there doing it. So then all of a sudden you become somebody of interest to help them, achieve a goal or to complete a project or something. And in some ways I feel like I'm living that, because nobody was tripping over themselves to put any kind of diversity in sci-fi fantasy art 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but now it's in fashion. So I'll just ride that wave.
You should.
Because there's plenty of the alternative. So there's plenty of artists that have made brilliant award-winning careers out of never, ever putting anybody that looks like me or you in their artwork, even if they had the opportunity to. Like, why? What collector is going to buy that? You know, stuff like that. So, but anyway.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you so much. It was a great interview, very, very informative for me, and I'm certain that a lot of people and younger artists, the range of artists who look at my videos are between 15 to 30. So a lot of them are going to find this very, very useful. Thank you so much. Finally, where can people find you if they want to look for you?
So the main website is ericwilkersonart.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's just Instagram, Eric Wilkerson Art. And I'm also on Facebook, but most of the time I am posting my stuff on Instagram. So if anybody has any questions, wants to continue the conversation, they can just message me there. And that's me.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And we will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.